Welcome to Sex Ed with DB. I'm your host, DB, aka Danielle Bezalel. Let's get into it. Friends and sex ed lovers, the time has come for the last episode of Season 3 of Sex Ed with DB. I can't believe we did it, but here we are. Part 2 of 2 of Sex Ed on screen and on stage. Today, I interview the amazingly talented and bright Oona Osato, aka Exotic Other, aka Norms. Oona is a performer, writer, and educator from NYC who dynamically merges her art and politics on stage and off. Oona has been performing in NYC for over 3 decades, and she's been writing, performing, and producing her award-winning original work for over 15 years. She's a co-founder of the renowned troupe Brass, Brown Radical-esque Burlesque, who have a queer POC monthly show called Compost Bin in Brooklyn. Listen up for the last interview of Season 3 with Oona. Looking for a period game changer? Meet Lena, the reusable silicone cup that collects your monthly period blood. No odor, no leaks, and so comfortable you'll forget you're on your period. 90% of first-time Lena Cup users never go back to pads and tampons. Go to lenacup.com and use promo code SEXWITHDB to get $5 off your first order. Lena, a better period. Self-care is super important to us here at Sex Ed with DB. Luckily, we found a partner who cares about it just as much as we do. Say hey to Sweet Vibrations. Sweet Vibrations is an adult boutique out of sunny San Diego that encourages young people to educate themselves about sexual wellness and improve overall health. Everyone deserves their O, and Sweet Vibrations is committed to helping you find yours. All 4 of their buzzing beauties are under $50, so you don't have to break the bank. Go to www.sweetvibes.toys to buy yours today. Have you ever felt anxiety about having sex? Or experienced pain during intercourse? Emotions are deeply intertwined with sexual activity, and anxiety, depression, and fear of intimacy can all contribute to painful sex. The good news is, now there is Milli, the gentlest vaginal dilator on the market. With a design that puts you in control, Milli can help reduce sex anxiety by breaking the negative cycle of muscle contraction that causes pain. Learn more at www.millimedical.com. Again, thank you so much for being on, Oona. We are so stoked to have you. Again, last episode of the season, so excited. There is so much to talk about and so much to learn about from you. And if you're down, we can just go ahead and get going.
Yeah, sure. Sounds great. Excited to be here.
Amazing. Okay, so can you tell us your name, a little bit about your background and your title or your titles? Because I know you're a jack of many trades.
Sure. My name is Oona Osato, aka Exotic Other, aka Norms. My background is sorry, I'm trying to remember. Wait, can you say again?
Of course, yes. You said your name, so many fun names. Your background and your title.
Okay. My background as a performer or as a person?
Yeah, both. Let's get into both of them.
Okay, got it. My background, I am a New Yorker, born and raised I grew up in the East Village. I'm queer, I'm half Japanese, half Jewish, and self-loving anti-Zionist Jew. And I'm a performer. I'm a actor, dancer, burlesque person, drag person, comedian, clown, and I'm also a teacher, a sex ed teacher by day.
Oh my God, you are the dream. You have so many fun things that you're doing. I hope you're incredibly fulfilled and know that you're making such a difference in so many people's lives with your art and your education and all of the amazing things that you're doing. So thank you again so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So the next question we have for you is, what is Brass and how did it come to be?
Sure. Brass stands for Brown Radical-esque Burlesque. And we are a performance collective of queer femmes of color in New York City and across the world. We have friends and collaborators who we work with all the time, who just make up this incredible constellation of gorgeous beings that we're so grateful we get to work with. And we started, I've been doing burlesque and drag for, almost 12 years.
Nice.
That's weird. Well, and like, I've seriously been doing it for that long. And we started Brass about 4 years ago, and it's composed of me, my sister, her name is Sister Selva, or Lil Willie, or Michi Lono Osato, and we are sisters in real life, in not stage life also. It's all real. And our third collaborator is Miss Aurora Bubrialis, or Don Dick Realis, or Don Crandall. And the three of us run the group, and then we bring in and we work with, like I was mentioning, all different incredible performers who do burlesque or drag or comedy or theater or dance. We work in all different disciplines, multidisciplinary performance collective. And it was really important to us when we started to bring our politics up front and center, and that just because we were of color didn't mean we necessarily had radical politics. And to us, using our bodies and creating the art that we create, we feel that it's really important to also center our politics and visions of changing the world and making it a place that's just and free, where we all can be ourselves and have the things that we need. So we use our art to do that and gather community and inspire, hopefully, people to take action in their everyday lives and to celebrate being alive and
just being a person.
Yeah.
I love that so much. It's so special. That's so incredibly special. And so what do you want the world to know about burlesque and its history, and maybe what it can look like in certain communities today? Sure.
World. I would love you to know for me, so I've been doing burlesque for a while, and for me, burlesque has always been about storytelling, and the stories that I tell are about the world that I experience and justice that I see and world that I want and believe that we can create together. And so my pieces are always political. When I really started to get to learn about burlesque, it started. Sometimes people just think of it as, the movie burlesque or some, very tiny definition of it. And it's actually an art form that's been around from the 16th or 17th century. It's an old art form, and it started as a literary art form. So it wasn't even performance-based at first. And they say that it was like in the Italian or Spanish, you see the word burla, and it was always about like making social commentary on the world and about like to joke or to mock. And then you see the art form kind of grow into all different kinds of expressions and so like there's like a traditional history of burlesque, and that kind of you can follow that. And I'm a history nerd, so I love history for sure.
Yeah, it's great.
It's great. It's our world. And to me, burlesque also is about bodies and about the stories that we tell. And so for me, burlesque is is history. It is the history of how bodies have been treated, and it's a history of genocide. It's a history of slavery. It's a history of exploitation of workers, and how sex and sexuality and gender, and how people also use their bodies to fight for their lives and to tell the stories that we do that maybe aren't necessarily heard or written in traditional history. So I love burlesque. I think it's an incredible art form that is alive, and we get to experience it with an audience together. And so if you've never seen burlesque before, I hope you will go check it out and give it a try. And
yes, it is so fun. It is really like all encompassing, and you get to be so present as an audience member. I've never been a performer of burlesque, but I'm sure it's so incredible to just like have a captive audience and be able to like share your story with your body, like you were saying.
Totally. And I think it's like, I think a lot of burlesque is how I like came to, or through burlesque that I like learned a lot about my own, what like sexy is to me, what, who I like, my own sexuality, and just like a comfort with my own body. It was like, especially when I first started doing it, it was like a place that I could just really be present with myself and an audience and just be like, this is who I am. And this is what I think sexy is. Like, to me, sexy is funny. It's political. It's awkward. And learning that about myself, made me like less feel like I needed to fit in or be somebody else. Like, that I needed to be a certain gender, or I needed to have a certain body. That, it really allowed me this, and continues to allow me this opportunity to just be where I'm at, be who I am.
You talk about burlesque as embodying your politics. Can you talk more about that and why it's super important to you to be political, especially like in this time that we're at right now in our like political moment?
Totally. I think burlesque for me has really provided this incredible opportunity to learn about who I am with an audience, and just real like gifts of moments where I can just be present in my body, which, I'm a New Yorker, so constantly like there's always something to do next, and it's running around. And burlesque has been this moment of, I'm telling stories with my body, stories that are important to me. And to me, we get like, a few moments where people are paying attention to us or paying attention to my body. And I want to tell a story that is, shares my perspective of the world, things that I experience, things that my community experiences, and have people either like see themselves in that or witness that, and then like together think about like what else can we do beyond this reality. And so burlesque is, I've just really gotten to learn for myself what who I am, and like what I find sexy, and just getting to appreciate that each body is so unique, has its own story to tell, has, history of experiences and generations that have led them to this moment. And so burlesque allows us in these great moments to just be like, wow, that's the story you want to tell. And that's like, we get to share and experience that together. And I think especially in this moment that we're living in, where things are becoming a lot more extreme, fascism is on the rise, climate change is heightening, everything. Yes. And the like, people organizing and resisting and standing up to the mess is, and like organizing ourselves is also on the rise too. And so we're like in this, in a moment of extremes, which is like, totally like, it's so much for all of us. And I think moments that we can be like present with each other and like fill up and like return to our bodies and be like, okay, what are we going to do together? How are we going to fight for this world that we all deserve? I think are really important. And I think live theater and burlesque, we do like monthly shows called Compost Bin, where we compost the world with our art. And I think they allow all of us to just kind of be together, to witness and to fill up, to release, and then go back out there and then regather each month. Feels really important in this moment.
I love that. And just to kind of like refresh all the bullshit, the beauty, the hard things going on, and really just like process it
together. Yeah, totally.
I love that so much. Okay, so as you know, this episode is all about sex ed and entertainment. And yes. And so growing up, I'm wondering, so you're mentioning you're half Jewish, you're half Japanese. Did you feel represented in pop culture or popular media, or like on stage, maybe like on Broadway? You're like a New York City kid. Any like plays or any like art that you saw that you feel like really like represented you?
No. No, but it's like such an interesting, different moment that we're in now. Like obviously the industry, like mainstream entertainment industry, hasn't fundamentally changed. But there is like so many more cracks and openings in it, and we see like so no, growing up, didn't see representations of like queer mixed Asian people. And as a kid, was like I'd audition for things. Me and my sister both, we would audition for things, and oftentimes there were like casting directors that like would tell my mom, she's like the most like behaved and focused and like takes direction, but like she's just like, we don't know where to place her. She's not white. She's not Asian, like fully Asian. And so like, that was the feedback I was getting from when I would audition as a kid. And one of the few places that I did find like opportunity to perform more growing up has been like dance. It was less rigidity around like race stuff, and I think and gender stuff too. And me and my sister were on Sesame Street as kids also.
Oh my God, that is incredible.
It was really fun. And also it was just like Sesame Street was actively trying to create this like, reflect the world that actually exists in New York and everywhere that's very diverse and not just what mainstream TV would show us. And I think growing up, the thing that really, I didn't see myself represented, but I grew up in the East Village and in a time in New York where I was part of like youth organization, youth dance and theater groups like City Kids Foundation or Locomotion Theater for Dance for Children. And so these were spaces that we were creating our own material and sharing our perspective as young people, young artists, and how we were seeing New York and our world and what was happening. And I think like also the like underground theater and just like being a kid in the East Village, and people were making art to survive. It was during the AIDS epidemic, and art was one and the same as survival. And I think that like just growing up in that moment, and also like the different people I was around, I think really influenced me, and thinking about like that art is not separate from politics, and that it is how we survive. It is how we're nourished. It is how we fight for each other and bring awareness, and also like express who we are and our dreams for the world. And so I didn't see it in mainstream, but I saw it and experienced it everywhere around me and us growing up.
Oh, so special. So incredibly special. And something that's come up for us in the past that we've talked about is like the representation of rent, and like how, for me, like growing up in the 90s and then seeing Rent, like the movie in middle school, I was like totally blown away by, you know, the beauty and the sadness, and like it was completely about the HIV/AIDS epidemic in New York City in the 80s, and just such a powerful piece of art that's so moving. And, you know, obviously there are ways that it could be more representative, but there are queer people, there are people of color, there are people who are struggling but surviving with HIV/AIDS. And yeah, that was just always like something that really, really struck me as a kid.
Totally. It's funny. It like takes place on Avenue B. I grew up on Avenue B. So no, it's just like funny. I'm like, wow. I mean, I like definitely know all the songs. And it felt like a very Broadway representation of stuff, and huge for the moment, like no question. And like it's really incredible to like continue to see the way people like push the boundaries of what theater, what Broadway can be. And I saw this a friend of mine made this incredible show called A Strange Loop that was off Broadway this summer, and hopefully will make its way to Broadway because everyone just needs to see the show. And talking about being a queer Black man in the world, and it just it like blew my mind of what like theater and musicals could be. So I want you to see that one too.
Incredible. Yeah, I would love to see that. That actually segues perfectly into our next question, which are like, what kinds of performances on stage do you want to see? Like, what do you feel like is there actually first? Like, what exists that's already like inclusive and sex positive, similar to, is it called A Strange Loop? Is that what the show's called? Similar to A Strange Loop. Maybe like how have these stage performances changed over time, and still like maybe what's missing from them?
Totally, yeah. So Strange Loop is by Michael Jackson. That's the playwright and composer. Or I don't know how like musicals are credited. Yeah, like book by or whatever. And anyway, he made it, and it's like the most incredible cast ever. Also, another performer and like visionary artist that I love and is Taylor Mack, and Judy is like is just an amazing artist and human being. And me and my sister were there was a 24-hour Decade of Popular Music, which is a show that a couple years ago premiered in New York, and was a full 24-hour performance covering popular music in the U.S. over 24 decades. And it was just the most next level show like ever. And costumes by Machine Dazzle, and it just like, and like the most amazing music by Matt Ray, and direction, like it was just like, and included like basically hundreds of performers, and musicians, and directed by Nigel Smith. And it just like was it's like a queer telling of history, and like the most sex positive and like radical fairy ritual of I'm like not really doing a great job.
I am intrigued. You have hooked me.
Oh yeah. You need to see all these artists that I mentioned. Like they're just so incredible, and anything they're doing, you want to see. And so those are like some like bigger shows that I've seen, but I also like there's artist that I love, Morgan Bassicus, who's just one of the like most brilliant, funny, gorgeous performers I know. They do comedy and music, and we get to perform and have collaborated with them. And we have a show that we do. It's actually in the Brooklyn Museum. There's an exhibit right now in the Brooklyn Museum called Nobody Promised You Tomorrow, 50 years after Stonewall. And it's queer artists who were born after Stonewall, who are in New York City, and it's this gorgeous exhibit. It's up till like December, I think. And we have a collective, so it's Morgan Vasquez, me, my sister, Don Christian, Jones, T.M. Davy, and Anna Betbees, and we have a piece called the Lavender Hill Historical Society, and it's like an exhibit that looks at there was this book. Sorry, I've got to go back and back and back. There was this book called The Faggots and Their Friends Between Revolutions that was written in the 70s, in 1977. And it's an incredible text that just got re-released a few months ago. And it's about queer communal living and queer history and present and future. And it's just an amazing book. And there's like so much sex in it also.
Great.
Obviously. And so this piece is about queer communal living and about a queer commune in the 70s that the book is based off of, and also like our own lives. And then we also do a musical version of The Faggots and Their Friends Between Revolutions. And so these it's a really fun show and just amazing collaborators and artists, and just thinking about what can performance feel like and look like, and how do we celebrate and be with each other and our bodies. And so that's a really fun one also. I think most of the world that I'm like used to is in the performance world. But I also like, I work in the performance world, but I also write, and I like love TV. And so
who doesn't? I mean, honestly, it's the freaking best.
It's just wonderful. So sex positive stuff. I love sex education, and just wonderful. And there's been like it's really. I feel like we're again in this really interesting moment for. To be thinking about sex, and for me as a sex educator to be teaching about sex, and like thinking about our bodies and what makes us feel good and who we are, and just learning about sex and health feels really like essential in this moment.
Yes. So actually our last question that we have is about your sex education workshops, because you have facilitated workshops and trainings around the country, which is so neat also. And I would love to hear you kind of talk about those, and maybe just like how listeners can spread your message of sex education and of course about like appreciating your body, and like you really like live your truth in such a beautiful way. And I'm sure that is like resonated throughout your sex education workshops. So can you just like kind of mention a little bit about that, and like what folks can do to mimic you basically in all the like amazingness that you hold?
Oh, thanks. Yes. So I do workshops and I perform around the country with collaborators with our burlesque troupe. And we do a lot of, so during the day I teach in high schools throughout Brooklyn, doing sex education. And then also with our burlesque company, we do a lot of workshops around embodying our, oh, sorry. There's like a dog that's barking a lot. I don't know if can you hear it? Sorry, she's having a hard time at the moment. So we do workshops about embodying our stories and how to learn about like how do we appreciate and listen to and honor the bodies that we're in and the experiences that we have, and also performing our gender and sexuality in ways that are liberatory to us all. And so people can book us to come bring a workshop to you, bring a show to you. We'd love to do that and get to experience what it is to create a space and to just play in our bodies, and also and honor all the experiences that they have. So you can find us on the internet.
Tell people where they can find you.
Totally. I'm on Instagram. This is Oona, Una, is my Instagram, and Burlesque, Brass Burlesque, also on Instagram or Facebook. Can reach out to us and bring us to you. We're also, me and sister are in an incredible book right now, or not right now. I mean, the book is in the world. So it's called Pleasure Activism, and it's by written and gathered by Adrienne Marie Brown, who's just one of the most incredible, visionary, gorgeous beings, who has brought together so many amazing contributors who write about what does pleasure activism mean to them, in all different kinds of, from all different perspectives and different mediums. And so me and sister have a chapter in the book about burlesque and liberation. And so another way to interact with our work is you could read the book. You can, I would say reach out to us. You can reach out to me at Una.shows, SHOWS. Yeah,
Is that how you spell shows? That's pretty much how you spell shows.
At gmail.com, and be happy to be in touch and hopefully come to you or you come to us. We do monthly shows called Compost Bin, I don't know.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I guess one last thing is if you, again, there's so much pressure in being like, what's one thing? Because that's not the way to teach. You want to teach many things. But I guess if you could share one takeaway that you might have with listeners about burlesque, about performance, about using your body for activism and to be political, what would it be?
Yeah, I think it's about what is the story, or starting from what's a story you feel like your body needs to tell to the world, and maybe it's just literally telling it to yourself but getting it out, or maybe it's telling it to a group of people, or it's on a stage, but listening to each of our bodies and the world that we're in, the experiences that we've had, and not a story you think other people, because each of us have such unique and incredible perspectives, and important that, mainstream, not to hate on mainstream, whatever, but the status quo, doesn't want us wants to keep a certain narrative of history. And that's, why I love your podcast, why I love all taking control and changing the narrative ourselves for each other, creating the world that we want to see. And that takes each of us working with each other, telling our stories, and collectively creating the world that we know we all deserve.
Babeland is a feminist-owned and operated sex toy shop that focuses on both pleasure and education. With a diverse catalog of sex toys, kink gear, books, lingerie, massage products, and more, plus free events and workshops at each of their 4 store locations, Babeland is your one-stop sex-positive shop. You can use code DBBABE, all one word, in stores or online at babeland.com for 15% off one item. Are you a cancer survivor, or do you know someone who is? Early or severe menopause and painful vaginal sex can often be an undiscussed and unexpected side effect to cancer treatment. Luckily, Milli can help. Milli is the gentlest dilator on the market, with user-controlled in-vagina expansion, enabling gradual increases in size with only one insertion. Getting better is hard. Don't shortchange your progress. More than 50% of sexually inactive Milli users return to sex within 3 months of using Milli, with 30% reduction in pain and anxiety. Use Milli to have more pleasurable sex and break your cycle of pain. Go to www.millimedical.com to check it out. Need a new sex toy? Spectrum Boutique is an awesome, sex-positive toy store that has a no-nonsense approach to sexuality and sexual education. They believe that fulfilling your sexual desires is an important self-affirmation and human right, and they welcome all identities, curiosities, and experience levels. Go to spectrumboutique.com and use discount code SEXEDWithDB10 to get their latest goodies. Special announcement! We will be coming back next year with Season 4 of the podcast. If you're interested in sponsoring us, partnering with us, being a guest, or just want to say hey, be sure to email us at sexedwithdb@gmail.com. See you all in 2020 for some more sex ed. Our creator, producer, and host is me, Danielle Bezalel, aka DB. Our assistant producer is Kathy Cohen. Our graphic illustrator is Alanna Rance. Our sound engineer is Oliver Divone. Our fundraising co-coordinator is Jamie Cooper, and our other fundraising co-coordinator / content assistant is Callie Cochran. Our music is by Ben Sound and Hook Sounds. Thank you so much to our featured voices, sponsors, and our listeners. Tune in next time.